We love being able to go to the different high school, colleges, middle schools to live broadcast sporting events around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live appreciates all the fan support, but without a presenting sponsor like Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Opelika, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you so much. Go to glennsmith.com. That is right, glennsmith.com. See all the inventory and see why people always say, get ready to smile. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for being our presenting sponsor.
The Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. Thrift Barringer alongside. There he is on the other screen. His name is Richie Rich. Richard, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Thrift.
We got a great show in store for you. Glad to be back in the saddle. We did a show last Thursday. A lot has happened since then in the sports world. We got SEC Media Days. We're going to be talking with people that are at the SEC Media Days throughout the week. We're excited. Richard's got some hot takes that he's going to be dropping. We won't drop them today because I want to wait and hear from all the coaches. So we're going to save that for Thursday when we give our predictions heading into the season. And I'm not really big on predictions because, I mean, they're all educated guesses. It's not like you know everything because injury here, injury there could change an entire season. But we're presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. And
Get
Richard,
ready to smile.
Get ready to smile, baby.
I thought you were teeing me up for that one.
Well, you should have came in a little bit stronger than that, Rich. But we got on today's show. They won the championship in their first season, in their inaugural season. The Columbus United soccer team has taken the city by storm in winning a championship. They continue moving forward. We'll talk with the leader, the conductor of it, Coach Brett Teach, here in just a moment. We were going to have on Bryce Kuhn, but we've had to reschedule. We'll have him on here in the next couple of days. He is live from SC Media Days as he works for LSU 247, but he covers all things SEC with his podcast, The Crowded Booth. And we'll wrap up the show with Rick Beach, touch on some high school football that's coming up, some Braves, and some topics heading into what should be an eventful SEC Media Days. What you got on the docket, Richard? What's been going on with you?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, we just had the MLB amateur draft. Congratulations to Cole Mathis, who played at Harris County, got selected by the Chicago Cubs. I know Drew Platt is excited about that. I know Rick Beach is excited about that. And Tony Montgomery committed to Troy.
Yep.
And then we also have, on July the 18th, the softball field at Shaw is going to be named by the legendary softball coach, Debbie Ball, the mother of head coach of Glenwood, Dusty Perdue.
Unbelievable. And it's been incredible to see what Dusty and his whole family, what Coach Perdue's done, obviously at Glenwood, but Debbie, legendary softball coach, multiple state championships, and now she's going to have an entire field named after her, as it should be, because she started the softball program back at Shaw back in the day, and she is been an incredible coach, and this is very much well-deserved. Congratulations to Cole Mathis, as you made mention, local town product, getting drafted in the second round. That's pretty incredible, man. That's high. When you have like 50 to 100 rounds in baseball drafts, you go in the second round, that's like being a first-round draft pick, in my opinion, in the NBA draft or the NFL draft. So I think that's a big deal. Congratulations to Cole, and congratulations to Tony Montgomery. I saw that he's going to be committed to Troy. So we got a Division I product playing at Carver. So can't wait to see what he's got on the docket. And this is his senior season. He's playing football. He's obviously an incredible basketball player. That's what he's going to Troy for, is basketball. So we'll be covering him this year on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. As I mentioned, this week we're going to be hitting on a lot of SEC talk. We'll talk a lot of that with Rick Beach when he comes up, and we'll hit on with other guys that are covering, Jonathan Rivers, Bryce Kuhn, anybody that I can think of that covers college football. We're going to have them on this week. and cannot wait because in a couple of weeks, we're going to start dropping so much stuff. It's not really rebranding as it is just a lot of content that's about to come out starting in August. And I'll have a whole post and stuff like that. But coming up this year, you're going to see a Georgia Alabama Sports Live all over the place. And I can't wait for it. You thought we were busy now and we stream a lot now. You get ready for what's in store for the 2024-2025 season. Excited to have contracts with Glenwood and Calvary, working with them, working with Muskogee County and partnering with them, and Jeff Battles believing in what we do, and now Harris County. Plus, we got Brookstone, Pacelli that we cover, Russell County. Larry Knox wants us up there. We're going to be up there as much as we can. Smith Station and Central, we can on a game-by-game basis, but we always try to show everyone around this area as much love as we can, and we appreciate everyone's support of what we've been doing, Richard.
Yeah, it's just wonderful that we can do what I didn't think could have been done 10 years ago when I first moved to Columbus, but it has been a reality. I think that some of the things that I've talked to alumni, just the simple fact, our first live stream from Muskogee County was that Columbus Jordan game. I talked to a lot of alumni that went to Jordan and went to Columbus that were very appreciative of that live stream. And, and it just continued taking off because we were able to live stream all the public schools in Muskogee County. I mean, this hasn't really happened with the product that we have given out in this city. I mean, I've called games for Beam before. I mean, that was Glenwood, Russell County, and Smith Station. So, we took it to another level.
Yeah, we did. And looking to do it again this year. So more coaches shows, player spotlights. It's just going to be a lot of content, not just streaming, but we're going to try to become the ESPN of this area. I keep saying over and over again. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him on. He is the head coach of the Columbus United championship team. His name is Coach Brett Teach. Coach, congratulations, and thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. I think it's been a lot of fun doing the season, getting to know the city, and I was really proud of the guys the other night. We went down to Jacksonville, and tough trip, tough team, and played very well. Deserved to win. In fact, about an hour before we watched, I finally got to watch the game back because they just uploaded it to YouTube, so I hadn't had the opportunity to watch it, back and critique it. But I thought outside the first 20 minutes, we played really, really well, and I think we're very worthy champions of our league. So we'll do our best to represent them and the city well on Wednesday night.
You've coached for a long time. You've been successful. You've coached at every level, it seems like, and you're still coaching a high level, Division I level, and during your full-time job. But to come in year one to win a championship, I mean, I want the audience to understand how hard that is, because right now I feel like year one, you're just trying to break even. You're just trying to get the name out, and yet you do all that and win a championship. I mean, that is an incredible feat. How hard was that? And who are some of the people you want to give credit to on why the success it came this early in the Columbus United tenure?
I think there's so much credit to be spread around, because I do think any time that you're successful in any venture, there's a whole group of people behind it. It's never just one person. And so it all starts with the vision that Hitch and JD have, what they wanted it to be like, them securing the housing and opportunity to be transported the way we are, and so that we could create a really professional environment for the players. I think that's number one. And I think you look at, I have several friends in college, and if you notice, most of our guys come from a few colleges, and that's because I'm friends with their coaches, and we're able to get players, and really during the vetting process, we're able to kind of get the right types of people for our program. And then I've had an enormous amount of help here with Paxton, our operations guy, who, he's a tireless worker, and of course his family too. They're always involved in everything we do. And
100%.
No, it's a total family effort with that whole family. And then you have, obviously on the ground, JD. He's different than most owners. Most owners just sit up in the box and, and take credit and do all that. He's out there selling T-shirts and hats and hot dogs, and he's out telling the story all the time. And so when you see a group of people that invested, it really does make everything flow very, very smoothly, which then makes my job very easy because, a lot of my job was done with the ability to get players in. And we got a lot of good players, and obviously they deserve a ton of credit because they've come through, the heat of Columbus, Georgia. Some of them have never been this far south, through what I think is the toughest division in the country. Maybe I'm biased, but I think any of our teams could be in the position we are that are in our half of the conference because, the team that finished last, we weren't able to beat. We tied them twice. And so it just tells you day to day what our daily grind is. And so I think it really, like I said, starts from the top, but I think it goes all the way through the people at Connect. They've been so great. We have no issues at Connect in terms of we've never had any kind of conflict. We've never had any problems with our training sessions. Houston Sports Clinic has been amazing. The training staff and their doctors. And I'm not just, pubbing them because they're our sponsor. They've been great. Like they've been very, very, respectful of when we need to see them. They get us in right away. And so I feel like the guys have been well taken care of. So, and then of course, probably my biggest thanks goes to the people that come to games. They've been amazing with our guys, the signs, the relationships they've developed with them. It really has been, a kind of a family environment when we're together. And I think it makes the guys just that little bit extra hard, to play just a little bit harder, give a little bit more effort. I know, and I believe it was the last regular season game, we were dead tired. It was our third or fourth game. We went down a goal, and all of a sudden our fans started just really, really kind of rocking the place a little bit. And we responded. We scored a goal. We got back in the game. And it really does matter. When you know that you're playing for more than yourself, I think it really matters, and I think it showed in the celebration. So, again, I can't possibly thank everybody, but and then my staff, Bruce Wade and Jonah Canagua, there's every day with the guys, the value they bring, is exponential. That you can't measure it. Jonah on the field as a player coach, and Bruce is, as I call him, is one of the gray hairs on the sideline. And I just think he's been a very successful coach for a long time, and not only is he a part owner, he's really invested, and he's invested more than just time, his effort, energy, and he's been an invaluable resource for the guys and for me. So I think we've all learned from each other. And so I think that's where it all begins. And uniquely enough, we're playing another first-year team on Wednesday. So both of us are new teams, and we both won very difficult divisions. So, I would, Hickory, I have nothing but admiration because I know what it was like to go through it this year, trying to figure out, because everything's the first, right? The first mess up, the first, oh no, we forgot this, we forgot that, or didn't think about that. Like the first game we forgot substitution passes. So we're there having to write them out on paper, and it's like, come on. But none of us have ever done it before.
Right.
I've never coached in the NPSL, so something that seems really simple. Our operations people, they just didn't think about it. I didn't think about it. Our staff didn't think about it. All of a sudden, we're at Naples, and luckily they had a few extra days, and we were able to just copy them. And Bruce is writing away, making them look just the same. And it's like, man, what are we, a 3-ring circus here or something? So I think that you're always in that learning process that first year too, right? So that would be a longer answer than you probably wanted, but there are so many people to thank because things don't happen by accident.
Coach, you move on to the South Region playoffs where you play Hickory FC, a new team also in the NPSL. After winning the Sunshine Gulf Coast Conference Championship over Jacksonville Armada, you were down by a goal, which in the last 3 playoff games that we witnessed, you've been down by a goal, but your team's been resilient to come back. This was a little bit more comfortable. You're able to defeat Jacksonville Armada FC 3-1. And by the way, just watching the first 2 playoff games, they were playoff wins in dramatic fashion. That game against Tallahassee SC was on a penalty kick in the 120th minute. That game down against Pensacola FC, it was off a free kick in the 90th minute. So just 2 dramatic games. And by the way, a big shout out to the play-by-play announcer for Jacksonville Armada FC because he did reach out to me and also worked for WRBL, Stuart Weber. So a big shout out to Stuart Weber doing big things down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he was great. Like I said, I just watched the game back, And he and I think it was Jamal Johnson as his partner, they were really, really praising our guys, talking about how well we played. And, you don't usually get that if you watch the other broadcasts. They tend to be a little more, oh, that's a bad call, or that's terrible, or whatever. They were very, very unbiased, very, very good announcers. Now, obviously, they're pulling for their host team, but I thought they were outstanding on the call. I thought it was great to hear the guy who Jamal used to play for Armada, yet he was he gave a very fair evaluation of how the game went. I think once we got through the first 20 minutes, we really did kind of take it over, and we could have stretched it to 4 or 5-1, quite frankly. But it's hard to win games. It's hard to score goals, and so it's definitely a challenge. But we've been in that position so many times this year. And that's, again, the old cliche, iron sharpens iron. All of our games from game 1 to game 13 have been very tough. There's not been a single game that we've said, oh, that was easy. They've all been, we do our work in the first half, and then if we've moved the ball well enough at the end, the other team starts to tire, and we're able to then maybe open a score up to 2 or 3-1. But it's never easy. And the other thing is, we talked about the goals in dramatic fashion. We also did that early in the season at New Orleans. We scored in the 94th minute. We scored at Tallahassee in the 88th minute to tie it. And so there's a belief in our team that, we've never lost a game. We've only ran out of time. We always feel like we're getting an equalizer. And that's again, it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's really true. When your team looks at each other and believes in them and believes that in how we play and what we do and who we are, then quite frankly, you're never really beaten. You just play until the whistle blows. And if you don't happen to have enough goals, then maybe you're done. But I've learned through this season not to doubt these guys, because the effort they give and the connection with each other has been honestly really, really amazing for the short period of time that we've gotten to be together.
Coach, you talk about you're playing Hickory FC. So explain for everyone out there that doesn't understand how this works, because they think you've won the championship and that's it. Like we've seen with other professional teams around here, once they win their league, there's no moving forward. So you won the South region. So explain what's happening next and how far can you move, and what's the ultimate goal if you keep winning? What's the next championship?
Okay, the way the league works, it's a national league. So it's not just a group of conferences.
Right.
It is a national league. And so the league is divided into 4 regions: North, South, Midwest, and West. And so each region will produce a champion. And the only teams that go to regionals are the individual conference champions. So right now, we start a season with, I believe, 105 or 112 teams in the country. We're down to 12.
Wow.
So basically, we have 4 in our conference. Our region, which is the South region. So our region is made up of the Southeast Conference, which is, the one that Hickory won, and ourselves, and we play each other. And then West Texas FC out of Odessa Permian Basin, and Friday Night Lights. And then also they're playing Oklahoma City. And then the winners of those 2 play for a spot in the Final Four. So if the winner of the Wednesday night games will play Saturday, probably out in Texas or Oklahoma. And then the winners of that game will represent the South region and all the conferences that make up the South region, the 4 conferences, and will be the South region's entry to the Final Four. And that goes on. Now the West only has 2 teams because they don't have as many leagues. And then the Midwest has 3. So the North and the South have 4 teams each. And that's why we have an odd number in this round.
Gotcha.
So we have 4 conferences, and then it's 2 and 3 in the other 2. So it's 13 teams left, excuse me. And so we'll all play Wednesday, and then the winners will play Saturday. California, because they only have 2, they only play Saturday. And then there's a week, and then the first round of the Final Four. And that's going to be at the host site, whoever has the highest average, whatever they call it. And then a week later, August 3rd, is the final. So it's Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday to finish up. So August 3rd is the national championship game. And we are 4 games. We got 2 here. Yep, we that would be our 4th game if we were to go that far. So that's kind of how it works. So it is a true national champion. All the regions are represented, and so there will be a true national champion. So what we won was our 8-team league, the Gulf South Sunshine Conference, which I think almost by every account is the toughest it's ever been. And you have 6 teams that could be sitting where we are, quite frankly. There were 6 teams good enough to be ready to play in this first round. And then Appalachian FC, who's one of our sister clubs, because Hitch owns them as well. They lost to Hickory in the final, but they had been the number 1 seed. So, it's going to be an exciting night. First-year program up in Hickory, play at Lenore-Rhine University's football stadium. They've drawn well. They're a good team. I watched them play a couple times now on video, and it'll take our best to get a result there. But every game we play takes our best. Either we're there or we don't. That's the way it works.
Coach, getting an opportunity to see some of your players in action on the broadcast, I've noticed that Jonathan Kanagwa, the midfielder, he's had an impact in the middle when he was back in the lineup. Of course, your leading goal scorer is Javier Chateau, who has 7 goals, I believe. How about Bruno Garcia with the header out of nowhere off the free kick from Rafael Kawata? I mean, was that planned on the free kick? Because it looked like it was just perfect timing. Bruno Garcia just heads it into the box, and you end up beating Pensacola 2-1 in the 90th minute.
Yeah, that's actually the second time we've run that play. We scored. This was a free kick, but we ran the same set, and we scored against. It was here. It might have been Tallahassee for the 3-1 game, and Bruno scored it. So yeah, Bruce Wade, my assistant, he runs all the set piece activities. And so he's found a little couple seams. And so what he does, he watches our opponents, finds where there's holes, and we try to attack those. But, it really comes down to the service and then the movement of the players. Can we get them free? So, yeah, it was definitely a design piece. Bruno felt like there was a hole there, and he communicated to Rafa, who obviously played the ball in. Javi's actually up to 8 goals because he scored a penalty the other night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's firmly in. I think he's 3rd in the league in scoring, but where he's a little different than the other guys who are up at the top of the table, I think he hasn't scored multiple goals in a game. I think he scored 8 games this season, which, again, we tend to spread our goals out between him and Rafa and Carter. It's 8, 6, and 6 right now for those 3, which is a tremendous return for those guys.
Yeah, it is. And to see that the progression and see the team get better and better. But I got to make this point. For one, the final home game, that was the playoff game that Richard did against Tallahassee FC. I mean, I was watching from the Dominican Republic last week, and it was surreal last Saturday to see the fan support, how many people were tuning in, not just at the game, but watching online as well. It seems like the community is really galvanized. And as a guy that's from this area, Coach, I've seen a lot of, programs that have come and just never managed to mesh well within the Columbus community. I think that has been the complete opposite from what I've seen with Columbus United. And I've been really proud, and I'm glad that we were able to be a part of it. Thank you so much for putting a good word in for us. Richard, you did a phenomenal job, and now I'm just cheering. Hopefully championships are going to come here in the near future. But even if you lose on Wednesday, Coach, just overall perspective on what you accomplished this season so far, it's got to be pretty mind-blowing, doesn't it, for you, even for someone as successful as you?
Yeah, I think the reality is we didn't know what to expect. I mean, we have guys who planned summer trips, for the second week of July, who are having to change their plans. We have, we're going to pick a kid up in Knoxville because he's going to see his family for the first time all year.
Wow.
And so Bruce is driving up there tomorrow to pick him up. Bruce has a national, his club team's in nationals in Colorado, so he's not going to be able to be at the game, but he's still going to drive up to Knoxville, pick up our player, bring him to Hickory, then drive back to Atlanta. Next morning, catch a flight out to Atlanta.
Wow.
I'm driving up to so I can get him back to Knoxville so that he can catch his flight to meet up with his family. And if we were to advance, then, we're going to figure out a way to get him to Texas or Oklahoma. because it means that much to these guys. So I think my goals were really simple when I came here. It was, I wanted to help each of our players look at this process a little differently. What I wanted them to understand is the way that you become a pro is by what you do every day, because they're all their dream and desires to be a pro player. And it's not about, talent. If you're not talented enough, it doesn't matter. But if you are talented enough, it really comes down to, understanding what it means to be a pro, what it means by doing your job every single day. And I tried to create an environment where, as staff, we're always prepared. We always know what we're doing. We always communicate. I mean, really, several hours a day where we're in communication with each other about training, about player selection, about all those different pieces that go into it. And I think that, we've created a culture and environment within the group where they hold each other accountable as well. And I told them at the very beginning, when the team is really doing well, what happens at first, the coach is a drill sergeant. Basically, I tell them what to do, how to do it, what to think, where to go all the time. And by the end, I'm a tour guide where they're doing the exploring. I'm just helping them make sure they're on the right path. And that's what's happened with this group. And again, regardless of outcomes, I would have said the same thing if we'd have lost Tallahassee that night. The fact that at the end, we have grown almost exponentially from the first day. Not only we have talented players. There's no doubt about that. But about the 5th game of the year, I told JD and I told Bruce and Jonah, there's not a team in our conference that will beat us if we're our best. There just isn't. Because we've gotten to where we understand what we're doing. The way we play, when you get it right, it's almost impossible to beat because we control so many actions of the game. It's really difficult. And then you have to, I always say it's like a math equation, right? The more you have the ball, the more you put the ball in dangerous areas, the less you have to deal with danger, and the predictability of that type of danger becomes easier and easier. And then when you got defenders like Bruno and Mo and Devin and Damian, our back four, they just put fires out. Like, if they get caught in 1v1, they just take care of it. So it's been amazing. It really has been, to see the growth. And, I've long since, although I don't want to make this sound like I'm not competitive, you'll never find anyone more competitive than me. I compete in everything in my life. If you're better than me in something, I like it and I want to get better than you. So I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to try to get, if our team's not performing as well as I'd like, I try to get us better. But for me, the competition is not with our opponents, it's with ourselves. How good can we get before we run out of time? And that's really what we look for. And so it's a continuous growth process. And for me, when you have a team that begins to understand that and clicks, and I've been part of what I call them special teams, but teams that just touch you forever. I've been part of two as a player, one as a club team where we won a national title, and one as a college team where we got knocked out in the Elite Eight, but we were very good, and probably 4 or 5 as a head coach, where we exceeded the sum of our parts. Like if you said 1 + 2 + 3 + 4, our team at the end was better than the sum of all the parts. And I think that's where we're headed with this group. I think that each player will take something away from this summer that stays with them for their life. I know I will. I know Bruce will. I know Jonah will. And that's when you're successful as a coach, as an organization. I've already had guys ask me, are you coming back next year? Can I come back next year? What's going on? And again, the other night, I don't know if you saw the video of them dumping ice water all over me.
I did.
They were so excited about that. And there's a youthful innocence about that I think is really, really, I think it's a great statement about our team. And if you look at their faces, they were so proud they got me. Now I froze and might have gotten pneumonia on the way home. But again, I think that things like that happen within our group all the time, where some guy's down for whatever reason, the guys are always there to pick him up. Something happens. We actually had a player this year who had been picked for most of our rosters, but one of his friends hadn't been picked very much, texted me privately and asked me to drop him and take his friend.
Wow.
And this is this is an important player. And he just said, look, it's really, he's worked hard every day. I'd really like to see him going. And we took him and he did well. But that's not unusual for this group to have that kind of selflessness about them. And so for me, that's what you do this for. I mean, this is what, as a coach, you're in my line of work, you're not going to ever get rich. Maybe, down the road in Athens or over in Alabama,
Right.
with the oblong ball, you're going to do well, or the hoops, you're going to do well financially. But, for most college coaches, high school coaches, we actually really do it because we love the effect we could have with players. And I've been really, really excited about this group. And quite frankly, I think that, we've all learned. I've learned from them. I've learned from my assistants. I think they've learned from me. But I think there's a community that will never go away. So I think that is something that this experience will stay with every one of us for the rest of our lives. And so we'll always think, hey, you remember that summer we played in Columbus? You remember that? Or maybe somewhere here 3-4 years. And then what's been also really exciting are the younger kind of local guys who aren't ready to step in and play for the group yet, like Ryan Collins or somebody or Damian. But the growth in those guys as players. And so I'm looking at the future saying, well, next year we got Damian Fichetti, we got Jimmy McNamee, we have Toby Longnecker, who are some of our young guys, Ryan Collins. These guys have been really good, and they're starting to grow, and they're intermittently making rosters now. And so like last game, Damian Fichetti made the roster. Ryan Collins has been the last 2 rosters for us. So there's that growth, not only from the guys who played 13 games and will play 14, but from the guys who haven't played 1 second because of their energy and their commitment. And so what I love is we're building a base going forward as well. Because these kids, when they come back this summer, then they should take a step into where they're on rosters, they're playing in games, because now they've been introduced to the college game. So that's the exciting thing is I really feel like even though this is a great summer and a memory, we really want to create a legacy and a future. It's easy to create a memory. It's tough to create a legacy. So we really like to create something that is special because we'll always be the first team. But I would love to have 75, 80% of these guys back next year.
Yeah, no doubt. And Coach, it's been phenomenal seeing what you have accomplished this year. We're looking forward to watching the game on Wednesday. My final question, Coach, before we're going to let you go, and I guess it's not really somber, but it's not really positive. And I got to ask this question because I respect your acumen in terms of the soccer game. USA, they fired the national team, fired their coach, Greg Berhalter, who just did not have a great showing in Copa America. At this point, it seems as we're watching the FIBA basketball, how we are such a favorite. It's not even close. And a lot of other, like Canada and other countries, France, have multiple NBA high-level athletes, and they're not even close to the team that is being presented here for USA. That is the complete opposite for soccer. What do we do to fix this? Is it fixable, or is it to the point now where we're so far behind the other major countries that championships, being competitive, being in a semifinal, that's probably never going to happen for USA?
Well, we've been in 2 quarterfinals in the last 25 years, so I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And I really don't think that, I know Greg a little bit. He's a gentleman. He's a great coach. If I was my decision, I wouldn't have fired him based on Copa America.
Right.
I wouldn't have brought him back because I felt like the team. Unfortunately, Greg and I share a vision how the game looks, how we want it to look, but our team at its best doesn't play that way. We're more based on athletic ability and energy and passion. And unfortunately, we don't really have the components. We don't have, at the international level, a Jonah Kanagwa in the middle of the field that can control the game by himself. And you saw us without him. We didn't win a game the 3 games he missed.
Right.
We tied a couple, we lost one, but he just gives us that player. Well, the U.S. doesn't have that player either. We don't have a guy that can sit in and do it. So I really think that if I were U.S. Soccer, and again, there's a lot more that goes into it, and they're not calling me, asking me my opinion anytime soon either. But I really feel like that, he did a great job for several years. He brought in young players, got it going. I just think that it was time for a different voice. Copa America, if we're going to be real let's be real about it. We had a veteran player who's got a bunch of caps who did one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in competitive sports. off the ball, away from play, where there's a million videos, and he got sent off, and now we have to play a team that's inferior in every way to us.
Yep.
And they could have beaten us anyway, but most likely wouldn't have. They've only beaten us once in U.S. ever. And we took that and we gave them the opportunity to win the game. And then, right now, unfortunately, our goalkeeping's in such a state that they shoot the ball, goes through our keeper's hands and goes in. And, I felt bad for him, but it was a Horvath, but it was a bad goal. So I really feel like that. And then, honestly, Uruguay's better than us. And that's just the truth. It's like Canada playing U.S. in basketball. Right now, they're at a different level than we are. And so, fair enough, no problem. Could we have won? Yes. Should we have won? Probably not. So my concern with U.S. soccer had almost nothing to do with Copa America. It's more, I think, we're built for a coach who values things that are going to be more up-tempo, more, earlier, longer passes, quicker play. And I really feel like that's what we need. Spain's coach is interested, and supposedly really interested. That's supposedly really a thing. So it'll be interesting. It's going to have to be a thorough process. You're going to have to get the right person. I do like our group, but I think we got to, we're quick to anoint teams, and we need to quit anointing teams and saying this is the golden generation, this other garbage. No, they're not. They're good players, right. And they've been successful internationally in their clubs. But as a group, we're still learning how to win. And so I don't think we're as far away as probably it feels. What's the old quote? You're never as bad as you think you are, and you're never as good as you think you are. So, I think that if depending on the draw in the World Cup, I would hope that the round of 8 is a possibility. And if you get the right draw, like England, England backed their way all the way to the final because they got draws against teams that couldn't beat them.
Right.
And then they had a chance to win the final. And Spain was clearly the best team. Spain beat 4 world champions. The first time in history that's ever happened in any competition, because they beat Italy in the group, then they beat France, and then they obviously beat England at the end, and they played Germany. So they beat 4 world champions in the last 30 years. That's unheard of. And I don't think that we're ready to do that. But I think the Spanish model has shown you that there's only a couple of guys on that Spain team that you say, man, they're world class. But they're so well organized. They're so understanding of their thing. So I don't think it's as dire as it feels, Thrift. But I do think that this hire is critical. And we've done well with some of these. Like when we hired Bruce Arena to take over, he did a great job, got us the O2 Elite 8. When we hired Bora Milutinovic in 94, he's kind of the magician. We advanced when we hosted the last time. And I do think that this will be a wake-up call for some of the guys who might have thought a little more of themselves than they should have. So, I just think it's going to come down to hiring the right person, understanding our abilities as a nation with this group of players, and then, adding in guys who emerge. And we got to find a goalkeeper. We have to find a goalkeeper because that's been the hallmark of our country for the last 40 years. And right now, between Matt Turner and even Horvath, they're both really good club keepers. But, there's a difference when you get on that stage. Yeah. And maybe one of them can develop over the next 2 years. But we need somebody to take that role by the horn and say, look, this is my job. And so that's where I think our efforts should be sent forward. I just, right. But I don't think I'm a lot more optimistic because I thought we went toe-to-toe with Uruguay. I think we're top 10 teams in the world. And I thought we went toe-to-toe with them. We could have won. We didn't. But I felt good about the performance. Now, Panama was a disaster in every way. And I understand people say, well, it's about results, and we didn't win. Fair enough, but we're not good enough. And if you don't see that, then you're kind of, I think you're being a little bit naive, because until you understand where you are, you're not going to be able to build to where you want to go.
I think that's a great point, and that's why I want to ask you the question. And from a pessimistic person, I'm going to be optimistic, Coach, with you saying that. And by the way, talking about the goalkeeper, I don't think we've overcome since that incredible performance from Tim Howard during the 2014 Belgium game. You remember that? He was absolutely phenomenal. He had like 300 saves, it seemed like. But since that moment, the goalkeeping has been downhill for sure. Coach, thank you so much. Good luck. And we hope next time we talk to you, it's because you're moving on to play another round and maybe even the national championship. Thanks, Coach.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Coach.
That is Coach Brett Teach. We're going to take a break. When we come back, SEC Media Days is here. We're talking college football here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
You're watching right now the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to the Campus Academy Private School, where every student is celebrated for their individuality. With personalized curriculum, students unlock their potential, growing into confident learners. At the Campus Academy, we give teachers the freedom to create dynamic classrooms where every student's voice is heard. Discover the difference. Enroll your child today and watch them thrive.
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox. Discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Ready to smile. And Jared Hudson, we appreciate you. Thrift Barringer, Richard Holdridge on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Thank you to Coach Brett Teach. SEC Media Days is here. Richard, you know what that means? Sign of college football just around the corner. I think this starts the seasons for us.
Really
on Sports Vision's radio show today, we talked with Mike G of the War Report. He's actually there. He's heard Shane Beamer, of course, the State of the Union or address from Greg Byrne, the commissioner. We had LSU on today as well with Brian Kelly. For one, a couple things I took away. The SEC is dominated at every sport, and if you're not Greg Byrne is the Alabama athletic director. Greg Sankey is who I'm thinking about, but Sankey goes up there and he can just boast his chest and talk about all the championships, not just in football, but in all sports. That the SEC was able to accomplish over these last couple of years, and it's going to be even more dominant this year as you add Texas and Oklahoma to the mix. What were some day one things you took away, Richard, after watching SEC Media Days today?
Well, Brian Kelly took the podium first, and the first thing he addressed was the defense. I mean, LSU could have the greatest offense ever. Jaden Daniels can win the Heisman, but if you can't stop anybody, you're going to go 9-3. And I think that the expectations for the LSU fan base is to win a national championship. They won 3 national championships with 3 different head coaches, Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. And that's why they brought Brian Kelly over here. I thought it was very fitting that he started the day off. Then Lane Kiffin got a little emotional. As many of you know, his father, Monty Kiffin, passed away. He was known for the Tampa 2 defense. He was on Lane Kiffin's staff with Tennessee back in 2009, then followed him to USC. I feel that Lane Kiffin has arrived. Ole Miss, 11 wins, more than, been a long time since they've had 11 wins, and Lane Kiffin has made the difference. He has really grown into his head coaching position. I got to admit, Thrift, when he got hired by the Raiders all the way back in 2007, he was young. He was like 31 years old when he got hired. I think that he had to humble himself. Nick Saban hired him on his staff. He became offensive coordinator in 2014, and he took a quarterback like Blake Sims and made him a Heisman candidate. They were supposed to be not as good as those national championship teams that dominated, but they still went to the college football playoff or the national, and took on Ohio State. Lane Kiffin was part of that greatest head coaching tree ever assembled in 2015 when Derrick Henry won the Heisman. I mean, you had Kirby Smart as the defensive coordinator. Lane was the OC. You had Mario Cristobal. I mean, you had Mel Tucker, Billy Napier. It was just an incredible staff. And I thought that it was important that Lane Kiffin got a head coaching job at Florida Atlantic, then taking the Ole Miss job. And by the way, Ole Miss fans should be excited. He ain't going anywhere. He's going to stay at Ole Miss. I think that Jackson Dart.
You say that right now, Richard. I don't know if I believe that he's not going anywhere. I don't
Well,
think
that I'm going to say that's my hot sports take, that
he's going to leave.
Ole Miss is going to make the college football playoff.
Oh!
Jackson Dart is the best quarterback in the SEC. You look at the transfers Ole Miss have got. Have you seen Ole Miss's roster?
So, goodness, in a matter of 3 sentences, you have gone from Lane Kiffin, credit to him, Monty Kiffin, to now Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss are going to make the playoff, which could happen. Remember, 12 teams make the playoff this year. To Jackson Dart is better than Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe.
Now, I could be wrong. I mean, this is why hot sports takes sometimes they fall flat on your face, like the prediction that I said that Alabama was going to go 6-6 last year. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, you were so wrong on that last year.
Way off. Man, that was bad. that couldn't get any worse.
I want to say this. A couple things I took away. One, I think LSU is going to be the surprise team this year. That I know every preseason magazine's got Georgia, Texas, then Bama, and some have Ole Miss as number 4, as you may mention, the team that's going to make the playoff this year. And they have LSU around 5. I think LSU, their defense is loaded. Harold Perkins is the best linebacker in the country. He can play so many positions. They're kind of having like a debate on where they want to be able to put him. Now, I understand you lose Malik Neighbors. You lost Jaden Daniels, obviously, who was a Heisman Trophy winner last year. But I feel like Brian Kelly always reloads when it comes to the offense. Garrett Nussmeier is a guy that's had starting experience. He just lost it to Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. He's not going to be Jaden Daniels, but I don't think they're going to ask him to be because they're going to be better on defense. I like LSU a lot. They got Alabama at home. They got Oklahoma at home. Their road games are at Florida, A&M, Arkansas, and at South Carolina. Now, they do have a neutral game against USC, and they also play UCLA. So they're playing both Southern Cal schools. But I like LSU. And I think I'm going to start basing my expectations on if the Brian Kelly tenure is a failure or not off the first 2 years, because year 1, even make it to the SEC Championship, 10 wins, congratulations. Last year, the defense didn't live up to the hype. The offense was incredible. You won 10 games. You got a Heisman Trophy. So I feel like making the SEC Championship game, having a Heisman Trophy winner in the first 2 seasons is a win. Now you're starting to have Brian Kelly guys. This is the year that I want to start seeing what I saw from Notre Dame, but with better athletes and what he did in his tenure with the Fighting Irish. I really like LSU. I'm telling you right now, I've always been a big Brian Kelly fan. I think LSU, Richard, is the sleeper team that I may make it to the SEC Championship. Now, Nick Saban came out and said he's picking Georgia and Texas. I mean, we didn't even get 4 days in. They soon as they put him on the podium, give me a prediction, Nick. And he was ready. And, of course, he picked 2 of his former staff members. But then I started thinking, at most preseason polls, 3 of the 4 teams all were coordinators for Nick Saban. Sarkisian, Texas, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss, and Kirby Smart, Georgia. So he's obviously going to pick his guys. And guess what? All his guys are in the top as being favorites to make the playoff this year. Another thing that I took away, Shane Beamer in South Carolina. The days of South Carolina, remember, it was from 2010 to 2013. In that 4-year period, Steve Spurrier had South Carolina in an SEC championship game and 3 straight 11-win seasons, 3 straight 10 finishes, and a finish in the top 5 in 2013. That will never happen again in South Carolina history. Mark my words. It can't. Let me tell you why. Because they can't keep up with Texas or Georgia. Steve Sarkisian must be retiring. I don't think they keep up with Alabama with Kalen DeBoer. South Carolina has not been known perennially as a school that's had a lot of winning. They got a Heisman Trophy winner in George Rogers that they're proud of. A couple great seasons here or there. Lou Holtz was competitive. And then you got, in my opinion, one of the top 5 coaches of all time in Steve Spurrier. That's what you got to have. And even then, he never could get over the hump and win a national title just because of how crazy loaded the SEC was during that 4-year span, Richard. I'm not a big believer in Shane Beamer. He can be a culture guy. Go guys like Josh Pate were hiring him when he got hired. This is year 4. Year 3, you went 5-7. You tell me. Look at that. Look at the schedule, Richard. At Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri, and Clemson. All those teams will be favored over South Carolina next year. That means another losing record. Are South Carolina fans going to be okay with that? That's my question. Expectations for Shane Beamer, an 8-4 year should be compared to a 11-2 year under Steve Spurrier, because I don't see it happening again. But South Carolina fans are unreasonable, and I know they're not going to be okay with it.
Yeah, they went 5-7 last year. I don't think South Carolina goes to a bowl game this year. They're just not the same team as they were.
Back-to-back years.
Yes, back-to-back years, probably not going to a bowl game. And I think that Shane Beamer is probably going to be let go if South Carolina does not make it to a bowl game. But I'm going to take it back to the early 2010s. Thrift, you mentioned that team in 2010, Stephen Garcia was the quarterback. They beat Alabama. The great players in that stretch, like Jadeveon Clowney. They had great wide receivers that have come through the program, like Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, later Deebo Samuel was playing for South Carolina. I mean, they've been able to recruit good players to South Carolina. They just can't compile a good team that can compete with the likes of a Georgia. And by the way, they've done away with the conferences, so they're not trying to battle with Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida for the SEC East title. But I think it's going to be tougher because now you could probably get some of the top teams in the West. And if you look at the rankings, they're close to the bottom out of the 16 teams.
I'm with you, and I'm just not high on him at all. And I'm trying to pull up the SEC media coaches schedule because I know they split up.
Have it in front of me, Thrift. Tomorrow, Kirby Smart is going first, followed by Eli Drinkowitz.
Yeah, there's 4 each day. It's 4 each day.
Yeah, 4 days.
I thought one of the days was going to have 5, Richard, but I forgot, and I think everyone does.
4 days.
Vanderbilt has a football program.
That's right. Vanderbilt did go today. Clark Lee went today. Vanderbilt only won 2 games last year. James Franklin was their best coach in history, and that's why he's coaching at Penn State.
The one program that is not going to at all ever overcome adding Texas and Oklahoma is now Vanderbilt. And I just feel like initially they need to start thinking, and they're not going to because the money's too good. And I think they're okay with being perennial losers and just cashing that check. But if you want to win, maybe move to the ACC would be better for Vanderbilt. I do got to say, Richard, you talked about Ole Miss. If they do not make the playoff this year, I don't know if it ever happens, because you got to think Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, I feel like is only going to get better after year 1. Okay. LSU is replacing a lot on offense, as you may mention. Now I'm high on them, but a lot of people are not. You got Oklahoma, excuse me, who is coming in without their starting quarterback. And again, people are wondering in their first year in their conference, are they going to take a couple lumps? I'm saying all this. Florida is not good under Billy Napier, and I think they fire him after this year. Ole Miss has the table set in front of them. Now, they do have a pretty tough schedule. They have to, non-conference-wise, they got nothing. But at LSU, Oklahoma at home, Georgia at home, at Florida, and Mississippi State. The Georgia game could be a loss, and at LSU. Aside from that, if those are only 2 losses they have, let's say they do lose both those games, 10-2, and this conference is getting you in the playoff, as you may mention. But if it doesn't happen this year, I don't know if it ever does for Lane. I don't think Ole Miss is the type of program, and I know he's done a great job within the portal, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's always going to be able to find a Jackson Dart in the portal every single season. I don't think they can keep up recruiting-wise in the high school ranks with all the other schools, even though they got good money. And I don't know if the transfer portal is going to work the way they want it to. But again, they went 11-2 last year. He's won 10 games 2 different times in his 5-year period. He's honestly done a better job than Hugh Freeze did. Excuse me, I cannot get over this cold that I am battling right now. But I don't think Lane Kiffin, this is the year to win a national championship. I'll take it even a step further. To win a national championship, A lot of things got to align. You're returning 10 starters on offense, 10 starters on defense. If it doesn't happen this year, I don't think it ever going to for the Ole Miss Rebels. And with that being said, I don't think they win the national championship. But I do think they make the playoff, Richard. I do think they make the playoff because I think there's going to be 5, maybe 6 teams. I don't know about 6. Let me rephrase that. 5 teams at least that make the playoff.
So when I made my college football predictions, because you got to remember that the Power 4 will automatically get the first round buys. I've got Georgia and Ohio State winning the SEC and the Big Ten, respectively.
Are you already giving your predictions right now?
Well, no, I'm just giving you a scenario that Florida State is probably going to get like the 3rd seed and Utah is going to get the 4th seed. I think they get knocked out in the 2nd round. I think that there's going to be an SEC team or a Big Ten team with an at-large bid that's going to knock them out, and Ole Miss could end up getting into the semifinals. I do think that Ole Miss might be like an 11 seed or a 10 seed that could possibly go on a run.
Okay. Well, we'll talk Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia as SEC Media Days continue. We're going to have a show tomorrow night, and we're going to have another show later on this week. 3 shows this week because so much content.
That's right.
Also got sitting with the athletic director, state of the programs. We just did Kendrick's Andre Dye tonight. Tomorrow's Jordan's Russell Scott. Wednesday, we're probably going to have either Northside's Morgan Ingram or Harris County's Mitty Johnson. And then whichever one doesn't play on Wednesday will be on Thursday. We got Joseph Kegler coming up. So still a lot more we got to do with those. But going back to the SEC, I think Ohio State for sure. You made mention about the Big Ten, and I guess we'll hold off on the Big Ten. It's SEC Media Days right now. I don't want to talk about.
Well, you got the Big Ten Media Days next week in Indianapolis.
Yeah, we'll save that for next week. But I will say, you made mention about Florida State. That's what I was trying to go to because I am just struggling mightily right now on this broadcast. I cannot stop. Something is trying to get me. I don't know if it's Lane Kiffin. Rest in peace, Monty Kiffin, if he's trying to get me right now because I'm saying the Ole Miss Rebels aren't going to make it to the semifinals. But, Richard, Florida State and the ACC, you think that they are the favorite to win it? I'm not so sure on that because I think Clemson has got something to prove this year with Dabo Swinney. And I also think he's in a position where he needs to win a lot more than Mike Norvell. But again, that's for a later day. What are some of the things you're looking forward to these next couple of days? Really, with Kirby Smart, they're deeming him the next Nick Saban. Feinbaum's already doing it. He's already saying he's Nick Saban. They're the perennial powerhouse. So I want to see what his demeanor is. He is the top dog. He's coming in as a favorite. What is that going to be like? Now that usually in the past, everyone was looking forward to hearing from Nick Saban. Everyone's looking forward, obviously, to hearing from Texas and Oklahoma because they're new. But I'm talking about as who is the top dog? Who's the best coach in this conference? It's now Kirby Smart. So I wonder if that's going to add any extra pressure to him. And then in terms of Alabama, how's Kalen DeBoer going to handle what is the SEC Media Days? It's one thing being at Washington and the Pac-12 at Media Days that nobody watched. And dang sure no one cared about Washington except for the Washington fans. It's a whole different ball game when you're at the University of Alabama. I can't wait. I've heard his sit-down interviews with Pate. He's very well-spoken, but this is a whole different gauntlet. I'm wondering for this year especially, what are some of the question marks coming in for Alabama? When we're talking with Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama, Richard, you know what he said? He thinks that Milroe could have the best season of his career under Kalen DeBoer. They replace a lot receivers, but they feel like the thing that they are the best at is developing receivers. They got a handmade offensive line, probably the best offensive line outside of Georgia and Texas in the SEC, returning 4 of 5 starters. Alabama, again, people want to say questions because Nick Saban's resigned. I feel like they're in a good position, but how's Kalen DeBoer going to handle that? And then, obviously, on Thursday, I mean, Auburn. What is a good year? When talk with Mike G, he thinks 8-4. I think that would be a phenomenal year. Now, unrealistic Auburn fans may think playoff this year. You go 9-3 with that schedule, that could be a possibility. It really could, depending on what your 3 losses are and who they're to. But you want to see progression. You got the talent now. You can't say you don't have talent. You need to win more than 6 games. Is it 8? It's definitely not 10. And are they in the middle of the pack? Are they going to be at the bottom half? Where do they lay? And I think the biggest question mark coming in is the quarterback position. Is Peyton Thorne going to be who everyone thought he was at Michigan State? Or is he going to be back to where he was last year and he just never was able to get his feet underneath him? Those are my 3 question marks. And they're obviously the 3 schools that we cover the most at Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn.
Well, Thrift, I'm looking forward to day 2 of SEC Media Days tomorrow. I've been watching some of the coverage. I mean, Dallas does it big. I think it's great. Kirby Smart is leading things off, followed by Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri, Brent Venables from Oklahoma, Josh Heupel from Tennessee. I'm really looking forward to seeing the next 2 days after that because you got Kalen DeBoer on Wednesday with Billy Napier from Florida, Jeff Lebby, new head football coach at Mississippi State, and Steve Sarkisian from Texas, and then the final SEC Media Day. This is when everybody just checks out of their hotel. They try to find a flight late Thursday afternoon because they want to enjoy their weekend. We got Sam Pittman at Arkansas. But I actually think that Bobby Petrino is like the bigger draw. I don't know if he's going to make an appearance. The offensive coordinator at Arkansas, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, like you mentioned, Mark Stoops, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, assistant coaches don't make it. It's just head coaches and a couple.
Oh, yeah, I know. But I think that the media would love to see Bobby Petrino there.
I'm with you. And you may mention about tomorrow specifically. Obviously, you can't wait to hear Kirby Smart. He's going to set the day off. Tennessee is another program. They had a great year 2 years ago. They were a 30-point beatdown from South Carolina from probably making the playoff, going 11-1, only lost being in Georgia. But what is Tennessee's expectations? Do they expect to win 10 games? Are they going to be happy with going 8-4 and being competitive in a lot of games? Heupel's finally, he feels very high. I mean, I've heard a lot about this Nico guy that is starting for Tennessee this year, who obviously is replacing Joe Milton. Nico, I don't even want to try Imalava. I'm
going to say Amavela.
Okay.
Amavela.
Well, Nico had a really good bowl game in which they just obliterated Iowa 35-0. They're high on him, and they think he's better than what Joe Milton was putting on the field because, God bless. If I hear one more thing about a guy that can throw 70 yards on his knees, that doesn't make you a good quarterback. Ask Jamarcus Russell, who just got arrested for stealing money from a high school. We'll save that story for another time. But please, you're not a good quarterback because you got a strong arm. There's more more tangibles you need than that. I can't wait to hear from Josh Heupel. Obviously, Brent Venables in Oklahoma. I think they're going to take lumps this year, man. I really do. I think it's different winning 10 games last year in the Big 12 compared to playing in the SEC when you got to play Alabama, you got to play Auburn, you got to play LSU. I think they're going to lose 4 or 5 games this year. I really do. Without Dylan Gabriel, who, by the way, Gabriel, who's their starting quarterback last year, is somehow coming in right now as the favorite to win, the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman this year at Oregon. So that shows you how good of a coach Dan Lanning is. But I think the biggest one I'm ready to hear from, and I know most people are like snooze fest, is Missouri's Eli Drinkowitz. Brady Cook comes back, their quarterback, 21-5. They went 11-2 last year. They beat Ohio State in the bowl game, and Ohio State fans would be like, well, a lot of our players were ready for the NFL draft, and they didn't play. You still only scored 3 points. There's too much talent on that team that only scored 3 points, and credit to Missouri. Now, they did lose their defensive coordinator. He is now the highest paid assistant at LSU. And what's his name? Blake, geez, you know what I'm talking about. Blake Baker. I just had off the top of my head. He moved to LSU, which was a home run hire for Brian Kelly. I like Missouri. I really do. Now, I don't think playoff is in the mix, but if you look at their schedule at A&M, Auburn at home, at Alabama, Oklahoma at home, and that's it, man. If I look right now, they're going to be 4-0. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt. That's 4-0. You got at A&M. That is a toss-up because I think Mike Elko's going to have A&M with that talent competitive next year. Then you got at Massachusetts. Like, who scheduled that game? Who the heck's going to play the Minutemen on the road? Auburn's your homecoming at Alabama and Oklahoma. Richard, they could easily win 9 or 10 games next year. Now, again, there's so many good teams in the SEC. I just find it hard to believe that out of the 12 playoff teams, 6 are going to be from the SEC. You talk about in an uproar. That would happen. But if there is 6 teams, I think Missouri would be one of those. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a heck of a coach. And now in year 5, you're seeing that he's finally got the staff and the players in place. And when you got a guy like Brady Cook with experience and a schedule that's very favorable, 9-3, 10-2, I think that's a heck of a year in what is the SEC. I think 10-2 is best case scenario. I think 9-3, 8-4 is likely where they'll be. And if that's the case, if I'm a Missouri fan, I am thrilled to see my team doing that in what is the SEC this year. Richard, you're muted.
And then SEC Media Days wraps up with Mike Elko, the head coach former head coach at Duke, the new head coach at Texas A&M, taking over for a Jimbo Fisher with a big buyout. I know that the expectation is for him not to win right away because he's going to get some time.
And I know he is a
good coach.
They lost a lot. They lost a lot in the transfer portal, Richard. But if you look, Jimbo Fisher brought in top 5 recruiting classes every single year he was there.
That's right.
Even if they lost a lot in the transfer portal, there's still a ton of talent there where he can win 6, 7, 8 games for sure. Now, the schedule is not very favorable in terms of Texas A&M. They got to play Notre Dame. There's going to be a top 10 team at Florida, Missouri at home, LSU at home, at Auburn, and then they wrap up against their rival. First time they played them since guess when? 2011.
Unbelievable.
The Texas Longhorns. But I think a 7-5, 8-4 can be realistic. And Mike Elko, they returned 9 players from last year's team on offense, 9 on defense. Why can't A&M be competitive? If they get talent, they develop right, and they have a great system, I think A&M could be another team that could be a sleeper. I think my sleeper team to win it all would be LSU, but a sleeper team that could make the playoff, Missouri and A&M, very favorable. And that's what's so scary about the SEC is like, a lot of teams, their best case scenario with the talent they got could be 9 or 10 wins. You can't have, there's no way you're going to have 8 or 9 or 10 win teams. There's going to be a team that has 8 or 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11 win capability because of the talent on the roster, but the schedule's so tough, they will lose games because week in, week out, they're getting the best of the best in the SEC, and are fans going to be okay with it? That's my ultimate thing, Richard. Are the fans going to be okay with having a team that's talented enough in another conference to win 10, 11, 12 games, but only winning 8 because they're in a tough SEC? They better, because if not, we could have coaching carousel like we never seen before. So I hope everyone is ready for it. I hope they're excited, and I hope they're okay with not being any undefeated teams. And Alabama could go 10-2 next year and win the national championship. And that's just the way of the world we live in. And as I may mention, you put A&M and that roster in the Big 12 or the ACC, they're probably one of the favorites or top 4 team, Richard. In the SEC, they're coming in at number 7 or 8. That's where we're at in this conference when adding a team like Texas and Oklahoma to it. Any final thoughts as we head into day 2 of SEC Media Days? We'll have Bryce Coon on tomorrow, hopefully. He covers LSU 247, like I said, from this area, covers all things college football. And Jonathan Rivers, who has a show on Fox 54 that is called Moving the Chains. He talks NFL and college football. Want to hear from him. So like I told you, all things college football this week with our high school and local coverage. Any other final thoughts from day 1, Richard, that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, it was a great show. I mean, great talk about SEC. I mean, college football is pretty much 6 more Saturdays because, I follow Josh Pate on Twitter, and, he does that famous picture of him in the cornfield. 6 more Saturdays. We know that college football is just around the corner. By the way, SEC Media Days is scheduled to be in Atlanta next season.
Thank you. We're going to be there, Richard.
I'm so glad because I know I want to be there.
Richard's going to be there if it means he's got to have his hiking boots on, his backpack, and he's walking all the way there. Be damned if Richard's going to miss the SEC Media
Look,
Day.
I even entertained the idea of going to SEC Media Days in Dallas, but the cost was just too much. I mean, looking at flights, hotels.
Well, we got guys like Jonathan Hoppy, Mike G, Stephen M. Smith, Bryce Coon. We got a lot of affiliates and contributors to what we do that are there. So, hey, I know we wanted to be there, but it's okay. We'll be there next year. It's been a lot of fun. Congratulations again to Brett Teach. Where can everybody watch the game on Wednesday, Richard?
All right, so the Hickory FC should have a YouTube channel, but I will keep you posted. I know that Columbus United has been posted on their Facebook page, but once we get a word, I mean, it should be broadcasted on Hickory FC's YouTube channel, but I'll be reaching out to Hickory FC to see if they're able to have that up and running.
Well, his name is Richard Holdridge. We want to say thank you to Brett Teach. Tune in tomorrow. As we made mention, we got our show. Plus, we got Russell Scott sitting with an athletics director, state of the programs from Jordan. So make sure to tune in. Richard did a great job with Andre Dye. He's got Russell Scott tomorrow. So just busy as we continue going on here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Good night, everyone, and thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. You're ready to smile.